Last week I made a video called Beat Coronavirus and Speeding Tickets, Life-Changing Real Mystical Advice. And I received a very interesting question. I was asked, what about parking tickets? So the implication is that there's a fundamental difference between speeding tickets and parking tickets. So what's the difference? So I spoke last week on why people might speed in their car. And when they see a police officer, they slow down. And the answer was Das. The answer I presented, anyway, was Das. Das being the quality of something being real to you. That the reason they slow down when they see the police officer is because a police officer is real to them. Not only know in their head it's a real thing, but also it's very relatable. And the risks of speeding are a little bit more difficult to relate to if we've been so fortunate as to not deal with them. And one can contemplate their way into not speeding in their car or into wearing their mask in the times of this virus that's going around. It's decreasing, should be eradicated. It should immediately. And you can also just take on not speeding as a habit, and then a week later ask yourself why you're doing this new thing of not speeding, and then you put together the two pieces. So at the end of the day, it's a decision that someone makes. And how do they weigh that decision? What's real to them? What's important to them? But it's a conscious decision. Now, a parking ticket. Most people, when they receive parking tickets, I think are surprised because they thought that they had parked in a perfectly legal place to park, perfectly safe and legal place to park. So they get back to their car and they find the ticket and they say, but look, I parked close to the curb and look what it says on the sign. And they go and they look at the sign and they realize, wait, oh, street sweeping on Tuesdays? Oh, I thought it said Thursdays. They realized that they made a mistake in the simple reality of the situation. They didn't intentionally park on a day that there was going to be street sweeping. It isn't like speeding, where someone knows the speed limit, and yet they decide it's okay if I go over the speed limit. A parking ticket, it's an accident. And so we may be able to contemplate our way into not getting speeding tickets, not speeding in a car. But how could you contemplate your way out of parking tickets when you didn't mean to get a parking ticket? You didn't mean to park in a way that was objectionable to anyone. You thought what you were doing was right. There's just a little detail that got by you. So, as far as our behavior is concerned, there's an idea that a lot of people are familiar with of the little angel on one shoulder and the little devil on another shoulder, and then whispering things into one ear or the other. You know, eat the other piece of cheesecake, and the little angel says, no, you should eat the salad. The little devil says, oh, you can drive faster, it's okay. Yeah, faster, there's not a police officer here. The angel says, no, you should drive safely. And it's a conscious decision. They're whispering into your ears, they're saying words to you, you're processing words with your mind, and you're weighing the words, and you're making a decision based on that. So, in Yiddishkeit, in Judaism, we have Hebrew terms for this dynamic. See, the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov. This means the influence that's bad, the little devil on one shoulder, and the influence that's good, the little angel on the other shoulder. And what is an influence? An influence is something outside of you that comes to you during times of a decision and tries to persuade you one way or the other. So an influence, it's not something that's always there. It's only something that's there at the time of making a decision. Like, should I speed or not speed? But as far as parking, it wasn't really a conversation of influence. You thought you were doing the right thing. The mistake was not that you followed the advice of the little devil on your shoulder. There wasn't any sort of debate about should I park legally or illegally, usually. So, in order to shed insight on the situation of parking tickets, we need another explanation. So in Chassidus, in applied Jewish mysticism, we have another explanation of this dynamic. And the terminology is a little bit different. Rather than saying a yetzer, an influence, we call these two sides, they're each called a nefesh. Nefesh means self. So the difference between a yetzer and the nefesh, a yetzer, it's something outside of you. And it only comes to you sometimes when there's a big decision to be made. But a nefesh is with you all the time. It's part of you. Where else would it go? It's always with you. Whether you're making a big decision, whether there's not any sort of decision to make. So that's one difference. The other difference is reflected in the second word. So we don't say yetzer, we say nefesh. And rather than saying ra and toiv, bad and good, we say the nefesh habahmis, the animal self, and the nefesh ha'elikis, the godly self. So the nefesh habahmis, the animal self, it isn't necessarily bad. Not necessarily. We don't call it nefesh hara. We don't call it the bad self. It's just unrefined. It's animalistic. It does what it wants. The nefesh ha'elikis, the godly self, it only does the right thing. And not only does it want to do the right thing, it wants to do the most possible right thing. And it will stop at no length. It will find out every detail about the situation, everything that could potentially go awry. It will do everything it's within its power, which, if it isn't held back, is relatively infinite. It will do everything it can to make sure that it's the best possible course of action that is taken. So the nefesh habahmis, the animal self, it isn't necessarily bad. It can do good things. Actually, if it feels like doing something good, it does something good. And actually, if one can train the nefesh habahmis to want to do good, it makes the life a lot easier. So the fact that these two qualities, they don't only come to us in times of major decision making, they're with us all the time. This is to our advantage. Because it means that the nefesh ha'elikis, the godly self, can train the nefesh habahmis, the animal self. It's not a surprise. It's not, oh, the nefesh habahmis is here. Now we have to do. No, it's not a surprise. It's there all the time. And the nefesh habahmis, the animal self, it has a few advantages. So it's called in the name of an animal. Animals have strong instincts. Animals have quick reflexes. And so The animal is very good at sniffing out every detail of something to get what it wants. If you try to hide food from the animal, unless it's physically obstructed from getting there, it's going to know. It's going to be able to find the food. That has a very keen nose. And so these qualities can be used to advance the agenda of the nefesh ha'elikis, the godly self, if the animal self is trained. And so this can help us out in the case of a parking ticket. The animal self is able to investigate every little detail. They're able to be absolutely sure about what the sign says. They check the details. They notice everything too. This can also help us in these times with this virus. Take another example. We're in the grocery store. We have to go to the grocery store. We have to have food. The guidelines, the rules put out by all the health organizations say that one of the reasons you can go out, there aren't very many, but one of them is because you need food. So you're doing basically a right thing. And you know you're not supposed to go within 6 feet of anybody. And so you're not going to intentionally do that because you have das. You're taking seriously the guidelines of the health organization and putting the sanctity of life first over what you feel like doing. But how can you be sure that someone's not going to come within 6 feet of you? So to have this degree of care, you need to recruit the instincts and the reflexes of the animal self. To avoid parking tickets, to avoid coming into close contact with people when you're out in the grocery store during the times of this virus, accidentally. So sounds great. Sounds like a very helpful friend. So how do we do it? How do we train the animal self? So one of the advantages of the nefesh versus the yetzer is that the nefesh is with you all the time. So you don't have to wait until there's a big decision to be made to begin training the nefesh habahamis, the animal self. And when it's trained up, when the time of a big decision comes, it will be very easy to make the right decision because that's what the nefesh habahamis, the animal self, wants anyway. It wants to act in accordance with the will of the godly self. So it's in every moment. It's in when you're eating. It's a big example. You can choose, why am I eating? I'm eating because it tastes good. You can continue eating in the same way and say, no, I'm going to eat because it's nutritious. That's better. That's a higher order. You can go even higher than that. And you can say, no, I'm going to eat so that I have energy to do the right thing. And if you have that in mind every time you're eating, the nefesh habahamis is happy. It's getting food. It's being rewarded for engaging in this thought process that the godly self, the nefesh ha'elikis, is compelling it to think. When you're getting exercise, we all have to go out and take a walk sometimes, or run around, or throw a ball up in the air and catch it. Our limited exercise options in these times. So why are we exercising? Is it because we want to have big muscles? We want to look good? Is it so that we'll be healthy? Is it so that we will be maximally capable of doing good things? So if we have in mind that the reason we do all the ordinary, perfectly permissible things that we do anyway, while we're doing them, we have in mind, this is to give me the ability to act in accordance with the will of the godly self. the part of me that wants to do the absolute best thing in every situation. This trains the animal self. And then, not only when it's time to decide to speed or not to speed, but when you get to a parking space and you're making sure that it's legal, it's not only, oh look, there's a sign, says something, it's got a T, I think it's Thursday, I got money in the meter, my car's parked close enough, okay, good enough. This good enough, no. The animal self is going to make sure that the will of the godly self is upheld. So, if we all act in accordance with the will of our godly selves, we all do the best possible course of action in every situation. Not only we don't get tickets, because the reason we won't get tickets is because we'll never do anything transgressive. We would never break the rules. And so there'd be nothing to ever be punished for. And we should be able to bring about a world where there's no more problems, because there aren't any inherent problems. There aren't any problems that we create. There won't even be any problems that we foster. All we need to do is have in mind, with everything we do, this is either the absolute best way of going about this, or it's enabling me to go about things in the absolute best possible way. And through this, we should merit to have the absolutely best possible world.